All right. Am I live? Let me see. Yes, I am live. All right. So, can you please confirm to me if you can hear me clearly? Thank you very much. And if you're here, please let me know in the live chat you're here, please. Thank you very much. Let me check on my own mobile phone also. Hold on. First, I want to check there's no issue with the sound. This is an audio live, by the way, so the sound working is of central importance. Okay. Of central importance. Okay, according to my own mobile phone, you can hear me clearly, and according to Chris also. Chris, I'm glad you're here. Suzanne, I'm glad you're here. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do that. Within 3 minutes, I'll start because I always give the 4 minutes free for people to come in. All right. Thanks for the thumbs ups. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thank you very much. Consider becoming a member if you want. Again, I'll wait till 4 minutes for me to start. hmm Again, within 2 minutes, I'll begin. This is an audio live, by the way, as you can see, so I won't be showing any visuals nor any whiteboards now. If the what ask the question, if it relates to the topic, I can answer it immediately. If not, I'll answer it later on. Maybe. What's your question? I do not answer all questions on live streams, though to YouTube policies and also to prevent distractions from the real message. But you can ask your question. Oh, I see Tammy's here too. Good to have you here, Tammy. Again, I'll start within 1 minute. GT is here. Glad you're here, JT. I'm doing well, Wolborg. Joanna is here also. That's good. Tammy, you're getting some love from Suzanne over here. Praise God. All right. All right. Class has begun. Chris, you are mentioning about California. I'll take it with me in this topic of today because it fits the topic exactly. I'm going to use California as an example. By the way, I'm going to do it right away. So you have this place called California. It's a country, but because it's part of a union called the United States, it's not treated as an independent country. Even though in function it's an independent country, in military and judicial matters, it's part of the union called the United States. All right? California, again, it is a country, so just like Florida is a country, Texas is a country, New York is a country, but they're part of this union, United States. Okay? It's different from the European Union, where all the countries are still actual separate countries. So the United States is a confederacy in design, if though people don't want to call it that way, due to the controversial past of Civil War. But let's look at this. The fifth largest economy in the world is California. If California would secede from the union called the United States might face bankruptcy. That's how serious it is. California has a lot of land. California has a lot of resources it can export. California has high tech centers. It has economic zones. California, if California would leave the United States right now, become a separate nation, I'm telling you, the United States is finished because half of the country would be without a job. So California has a big leverage in part of this union called the United States. Yet in California, you have so much homeless people. Oh, and look at this. In San Francisco, there are areas where homeless people are defecating on the streets. I mean, hold on, hold on. I thought the United States of America is the leader of civilization, as they claim to be. I thought the United States was the high quality administration that keeps the rest of the world in check. And they have this one constituent country of the United States called California that is a rich place with a lot of money. Yet you have so many homeless people. I'm sorry, that's not the case. But here's the thing: the United States claims to be the leader of civilization. That's a claim, but does this claim match reality? Absolutely not. First of all, the United States lacks high-speed railways. US cities should be filled with trams, metros, and all kinds of sustainable public transport. It doesn't exist. And some neighborhoods in the United States are like ghost towns and they're filled with homeless people acting like zombies. Everyone in the world can see it. Yet, for a lot of US citizens, it's simply they don't see it. In their mind, the United States is the best that ever happened in human history. To them, the United States is the improvement of humankind. They think like this. But then you have this president, and by the way, the United States is not even an empire of nations. The United States is a republic, and republics are unstable by default because there's no leadership built in the structure. And the one that presides over this republic is Joe Biden. And I won't talk too much about him because you already know the condition he's in. I can understand that under Trump there was an illusion of improvement. But under Biden, come on now. Come on. And this is a good introduction to the topic of this live stream: exposure. There is one thing society cannot process. There's one thing society cannot handle, and it's something society cannot deal with, and that is exposure. Because remember, society is a narcissistic construct. Society is based on fear, and the grown folks of the population just want to escape. That's why society exists. So society is a scandal in itself. Communities are natural. We're meant to have and form communities. But society is a scandal. It's something you're not allowed to mention. So, for society to function and provide this collective ease for worldlings, the scandal must be hidden for what it really is. You should think that society is this magical movement of adults moving forward in life, while the exact opposite is true. Now, with the United States, it's obvious what goes on. The thing about the United States is, and I'm speaking as anthropologist now, the United States is a union of countries that don't have much in common with one another. Why do you think you have 50 states, 50 countries that form a union? Why do you have North Dakota, South Dakota? Why do you have all those states? Because often there were fights and little civil wars, so they broke up. So the fact you have 50 states is not a sign of strength, it's a sign of weakness. It's through military parades and military actions the United States held up this high image of this high quality area, even though in reality this high quality never existed over there. What happened is that since the Obama era, the hoax of this high quality rule of the United States is has shattered because they couldn't maintain this anymore. So Obama came kind of to keep the ease a little bit. And then you had Trump that came to boost the ego of the population just to win more time. And now you have Biden was finishing the job. I don't know what will happen in 2024. I don't. But I don't have a good feeling about it. I'm talking as um, as a social scientist over here. I don't have a good feeling about where it's heading with the United States. I'm using the United States now because with the United States it's obvious that it's a failure. The United States was successful somewhere in the 19th century till the Civil War. The Civil War was the proof of the failure. The United States succeeded again shortly after the Second World War. What do I mean with succeeding? With succeeding, I mean projecting this fairy tale that they are this strong, free nation that offers opportunities for everyone worldwide. That is the myth that the union called the United States is based upon. There were only two seasons in the United States' existence when it succeeded. That was around 1830 till the Civil War. That's around 30, 35 years that it succeeded in doing this, which isn't that long. And the other time was in the 1950s and 1960s. In the 1950s and 1960s, there was even an economic boom. You could purchase a house for $10,000, a big house. You could open a bank account and get interest paid just for having a bank account open. Things were booming financially and economically. It was during that time in the 1950s, 1960s, it was also time that mainstream media became dominant through the television, that this image was portrayed worldwide. America is leading the world. But in the 1970s, this whole myth was already crashing. The success of projecting this fairy tale was failing in 1970s. So since the 1970s, they've been distracting people. The distractions lasted for 30 years. The early 2000s, they had to come with another distraction. And then 9/11 happened. 9/11 was a failure because it didn't cement the American public. And here we are today. The United States only remains in existence because people are used to that area existing. But if even that interest fades in the world, I can see all the 50 states succeeding as separate countries, as separate administrations. The United States is not stable at all. Why? Because its crimes have been exposed. And listen to me here. Every society, every society is a cover-up. As I mentioned before, society is a narcissistic construct. Society is based on fear. Society is a scandal. Society goes against the Heavenly Father. So every society needs to defend itself against exposure. That is why Mainstream media exists. The mainstream media kind of exists since the colonial era in the form of newspapers and pamphlets. But during that time, the travel time and the costs were let me say, to travel around was a bit slow. But still, you had newspapers back then. Now you have visual media, you have audio media, and you also have the internet. So now media has accelerated in communication. Mainstream media is there to give ease to the public. That's why it exists. They say mainstream media is the fifth pillar of democracy, saying that um, it keeps the government in check. Well, it does. It keeps the government in check in making sure that the people don't have some ease. Because when the public loses the ease they hold on to, they lose it. Mainstream media will report about bad incidents because if mainstream media does not report, everyone will see through the deception. So mainstream media will report on things, but they will report with a twist. The twist is to give the illusion to the public that ease is the norm. The public does not want to face their own instability, or as the Bible calls it, their sinfulness. They don't want to face their own instability. They don't. If the public has to face their own instability, they lose their minds and they begin to victimize anyone nearby. That's the masses. So that's why in every country you go to, every country, I don't care about whether it's Zimbabwe or North Korea. Well, North Korea isn't even a real country. I mean, Korea, North Korea is a hoax, by the way, just so you know. Or whether it's Colombia or the United States, whatever, every country you go through, it's the same game. The public wants to be left alone. The public is neglectful and unstable. That's what the Bible calls. That's the fall of men. The only thing we can do about the only thing we can do is repent, submit to the Heavenly Father, and be renewed. Apart from that, we can only cope with our fallen state, but we can't resolve it. So the world has no solutions because they don't follow the lead of the Heavenly Father. So yeah, they have this instability that will that brings forth pollution, and the emotional and psychic pollution will lead to domestic violence and people losing it on one another. So to prevent that, you need to have some structure of ease. That's what society is. Every country you go through is a cover up. What are they covering up? The neglect of the public. That's why every country has tourist areas where you go to. For example, let's say you want to visit the north of Korea, that they call North Korea. If they already explained in another live stream, North Korea is a hoax. If you want to go to Pyongyang, the capital of what they call quote unquote North Korea, you have to have a tour guide that because you're not allowed to walk around freely in Pyongyang or other cities in the north of Korea. Now, when you go to the south of Korea, you arrive with your plane ticket, you go to the customs, and you're free to go wherever you want. Well, that's how it seems. Every country, whether it's a military dictatorship or a quote unquote democracy, and by the way, the United States is not a democracy, or whether it's a republic or an empire like Japan or a kingdom, or maybe it's a um, commonwealth or whatever type the country is. Every country you go through has some as a censorship they put on you as a foreigner. They do. Now, in areas like the north of Korea, they actually make it plain. You're not allowed to just walk to all places. You need to have a guide. Places outside of the north of Korea, they do it in a different way. They don't tell you you're not allowed to walk around freely, but they tell you, hey, you want to visit Portugal? Hey, here you have these tourist resorts right over here. Or here you have festivals over here. They are drawing your attention to specific locations in the country. Why? So you want to see the rest of the country. For example, you can go, for example, to let's name a country, Brazil, to Sao Paulo. You can fly to Sao Paulo A modern city. Absolutely. You have bars, cafes, nightclubs, you have big churches over there. I'm not sure if they have a metro over there, but I likely they do. I hope they do. But I'm telling you, even in Sao Paulo, there are some neighborhoods where there's a lot of neglect, and neglect manifests in crime and homicides. So, as a tourist or as some foreign, or maybe not even a tourist, maybe as because Brazil is quite big, maybe you are a Brazilian from the north of Brazil, from Salvador, and go towards the south. The people in the south of Brazil doesn't want you to see all the neglect that goes on, so they have those areas where they're actually pushing you psychologically to stay there. And you think, hey, it's easy. If I want to go on a holiday in my own country, Brazil, I go towards Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. I just go to a travel agency and purchase a vacation, everything included. Just have to pay a few $100, and it's easy. Yes, it is easy, but those agencies exist so you, as a traveler, will not see things you're not meant to see. Maybe there's a lot of child trafficking and child molestation going on. Maybe there's a whole network on the dark from the dark web filming the rape of children and selling it on the dark web, happening in Sao Paulo. And maybe when you walk in Sao Paulo, you see a lot of children um, looking scared around certain adults. But you're not meant to notice this. You're only meant to notice the bars, the cafes, the theaters, and all the other tourist attractions. Every country has distractions that they force down your throat, so you will not notice the neglect that goes on over there. Why do you think that most countries have this arrangement that for 90 days you're allowed to travel freely throughout the country, but after 90 days you have to leave? It is 3 months. Because this is human psychology. When you arrive somewhere and you stay there, for 3 months, you're so into your own bubble. After 3 months, you've been there for a while, and you kind of psychologically become part of the community. And once you're psychologically part of the community, you begin to notice more things about the community you didn't notice before. That's why countries with visa free travel, you're only allowed to stay there for 90 days maximum. After 90 days, they deport you. There's a psychological reason behind this. Let's say you have someone from Nicaragua. Nicaragua used to be a part of the Spanish Empire. Now, Nicaragua, as a separate republic, has a friendship treaty with the Kingdom of Spain. Let's say you have someone from Nicaragua want to go to Spain. They can go there visa free. I'm not sure though to the COVID measures if it's still there at the moment, but it's suspended. But in general, they can do that based on the friendship treaty between Spain and Nicaragua. Let's say someone from Nicaragua travels to Spain, thinking Spain used to be the motherland of my ancestors. So Spain is one that built Nicaragua, so it's a great experience to the individual. He arrives in Madrid. He sees the royal palace, the cathedrals. He sees all of that. He travels to many of the big cities in Spain: Barcelona, Valencia, Sevilla, Ayamonte, or Santiago de Compostela. So he goes to all those places. After 3 months of traveling in Spain, he's seen most of the country already. By now, he needs to get extra funds because he wasted a lot. He spent a lot of money on a lot of stuff. But then after let's say he stays there for the fourth month. In the fourth month, he feels like he's part of the people there because he's been there for a while. When he relates with the people, he begins to notice that, okay, I've been going from city to city, traveling around. Now I'm in one location most of the time. I'm working now in Sevilla just to earn some money before I go back to Nicaragua. And now he's not operating as a tourist anymore, just to now it's not as a tourist anymore, go from place to place. Now it's just in one location. And because it's in one location for a longer time, it's going to realize, hold on a minute. The first time I arrived in Sevilla, I stayed there for like 5 days, and it was a great experience. But now I noticed that a lot of people here look angry. Now I noticed that um, the police around there tends to be quite intimidating to the public. The thing is, when this Nicaraguan went to Spain on a 3 month holiday, it was on a honeymoon. You get me? It was a honeymoon he went on to. having this great experience of experiencing Spain, the former motherland of his ancestors. But now that he's actually part of the local community of one of the Spanish regions, because Spain is as various regions, it used to be kingdoms in the past. Now he's realizing, you know what? Now I'm seeing what Spain really is. Now I'm seeing the neglect of the local population. Now I see the things that they're hiding. Now I see the abuse of the workers, a lot of child abuse happening in families that the church is kind of hiding. So now you realize saying, you know what? I thought Spain was of such high quality. I thought my homeland Nicaragua was crap, but what? What the heck is this? And look at this. When you get bewildered because you notice the neglect locally, your behavior and your body language will show that you're upset. And others going to notice this. And others going to realize shit, you figured us out. What do we do now? And when the public creeps out because you figured them out, they will lose it on you. You're going to have lynchings or you can have all types of drama in the community. And because countries don't want to go through this, that's why they put limits on travelers. If you're is it visa free, 90 days. So even say 60 days, depending on the country. Or if you want to work here, you need a worker's visa. And for a worker's visa, you need to have contact with a company from the homeland so we can have a grip on you. A lot of people don't think why we have visa restrictions, and but now you understand why. Everywhere you go in the world, there's neglect because fallen mankind is neglectful, and people don't want to face their own neglect; they lose it. So that's why everywhere you have this code of silence. There's certain things you don't discuss. Maybe there are a lot of orphans somewhere in, maybe let's take Australia. Maybe in Melbourne there are a lot of orphans around. There's a lot of women that had babies and then they just threw the babies away because they just want to go party somewhere. And the father of the children also thinks, you know what, I want to escape. Let's say this happens a lot in that part of Australia. Now this is something quite embarrassing that this even happens. So those orphans in the orphanage, people actually wish they're dead, that they're not around. But they can't just go out there and kill all the children in the orphanage because that will look worse on on the community. So they let the orphans live, but they neglect them. So a lot of the orphans end up selling drugs or selling their bodies in prostitution just to survive because they can't get jobs anywhere. So as an outsider, you may hear people from Melbourne, Australia, complain about the crime over there. And you may see mugshots of criminals that were arrested by the police. When you look at the history of those criminals, you realize, whoa, 80% of these criminals used to be orphans, were neglected and abandoned by the community. So when you look at the bigger picture, you realize, well, don't mean it. 20% of those criminals are actually evildoers, just want to cause trouble. 80% are just people that try to survive. How come Australia is so big, but they can't build extra houses for those former orphans who are now adults? How come Australia is so big with so much land, but they can't build extra houses or extra factories to generate jobs? Now I realize, oh God, if these people here are willing to do this to their own locals, what are you going to do to me? And that's the thing. No society wants exposure. Because exposure means that it's finished. That's why every country has censorship laws. Every country has censorship. I don't care where you go. Censorship can be a healthy thing. For example, let's say there's a car accident and an elderly lady was torn in two physically. You're not going to take a picture of the organs all over the streets and put it in a newspaper in the front page, traumatizing people like that. You're not doing that. So some censorship laws are common sense, but you also have censorship laws that are there to to secure the sanity of the public. Because again, fallen mankind is unstable. Fallen mankind wants to flee all the time. That's why when you, as a journalist, when you dive into subjects that are too controversial, too sensitive, your employer will tell you stop it or else you're fired. That's why when you write an article for a newspaper as a journalist, there are special people that will screen what you've written. They will change some of the words, even. Why? Because they know the masses don't want to face anything. The masses want to escape. So they can't openly tell people, listen, they're bad, there's a lot of neglect going on around here. No. They'll pick up some of the tragic events and highlight those just to give the masses narcissistic supply. Mainstream media is there to give narcissistic supply to the masses. That's its function. For example, it can be that there are three um, robbers that were catched by the police, and those three robbers were migrants. And in mainstream media, they put the faces of those migrants everywhere. Robbers catched. Now the locals think, well, finally, I told you those migrants only cause trouble. We're better off without them. And because of that, people feel they're better off with those migrants that are arrested. And now they forget the fact that there's neglect all around them. They forget that there are a lot of child abuse victims with traumas walking around as adults that are untreated. They forget about all of those things. So mainstream media is to give narcissists is to give boosters of narcissistic supply to the masses. That's what mainstream media is meant to do. Mainstream media is not meant to actually inform and benefit the people. It's there to distract and deform the public. The public's already deformed, but it's to keep them deformed. You get me? Now you understand why there are certain things you'll never hear about the mainstream media. Even on, and here's the thing about social media. A lot of people say social media is bad for people. I don't agree. As an anthropologist and sociologist, I confirm the following to you. Social media is free to use by anyone. So anyone can post anything. And a lot of people post the things they go through in life. Now, normally in the past, if you were neglected by the people around you and were dysfunctional, nobody would notice it. Only people locally close to you. But now, social media, anyone can post anything. Let's say you have a female that is emotionally neglected by her parents, and she keeps posting sexy pictures online, thirsty for attention. Now, let's say that a lot of men in that country were also they're also not really manly, and they're all onto those thirsty women on social media. Now the sexual dysfunction of the community is exposed by the behavior online. In the past, this type of behavior would have been noticed by the public at all. But now, due to social media, the dysfunction of the public is all into your face. And now people cannot look away anymore. And because they can't look away, now they have to face the dysfunction of most of the people around them, especially when it's obvious people have been neglected. And here's the psychology about it. If you notice that there are so many dysfunctional people out there, they also need to realize that those functional people are neglected by those that raised them or those that they grew up with. And then you're going to think, but hold on a minute, let's look at myself now. Am I neglected too? Am I deformed too? And then you will notice things about your parents, your grandparents, people around you, and what happens as a result. You become anxious, and now you become withdrawn. You don't trust people around you a lot anymore, and that's the effect the emergence of social media had on people. It forced them to see the neglect of our own species. You get me? And this brings a lot of anxiety and anger in people. So a lot of people resist. They delete all their social media. They fight against social media. But this whole fight against social media is just a distraction, so they don't have to face the dysfunction they've been exposed to. Truth being told, the world cannot go back to before 2009, before social media became dominant. Too much has been revealed already. I remember one time there was a mother and a daughter having an argument. They were fighting one another on Facebook posts. And from the argument, it came out that the father in the household was not really active. And there were people saying, keep this off of social media. This is quite embarrassing. Why is it embarrassing? Because the local community knows very well that that father is not functioning properly. Why didn't anyone intervene and deal with the man? That's neglect also. And this daughter grew up in a functional environment that was enabled by by those around her. So she acting out like this openly is revealing that she's a product of the community's neglect. But the community doesn't want to take responsibility. That's why they say keep these things out of social media. Why are they saying this? Because they don't want to be confronted with the fact that they need to do something about it. Simple as that. So do you understand now what social media did to the world? Social media became an outlet that revealed dysfunction in the open. And now the public cannot go back. And that's what a lot of people are upset about. So mainstream media lost much of its grip when it comes to giving ease to the public. Because now you have social media that can easily challenge mainstream media. And now, even on mainstream media, you have cults operating. Mainstream media used to have a monopoly when it comes to diverting the masses from things they don't want to face. Now, anyone can go to social media, start a YouTube channel, or start a Twitter or a Instagram page, and become a media figure, pushing the masses. And what you see now, let's say, for example, you have your wedding and you post 500 wedding pictures on your Facebook because there were so many guests over there. Let's say someone becomes obsessed saying, "I don't want to see those pictures on my news feed." Annoyed. The thing is, why are you obliged to make sure they get ease by what you post? Why is you have to make sure that your existence makes them at ease? What the heck is that? So social media revealed how unstable, narcissistic a lot of people are. I'm telling you, a lot of trouble, a lot of homicides, and a lot of missing cases wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for if it was for social media. Social media exposed the instability of most of the population, and because of that, more of the population lost their mind and more crime happened. So, is social media evil? Is social media toxic? No, it's not. Social media is just a tool, but the tool revealed something about our species that for centuries our ancestors tried to run away from. They tried to run away with it by abusing the Bible in religion or by promoting secularism or by getting involved into mysticism. It's something they've been running away from. Chuba, I'm glad you're here, brother. Glad you're here. So, society cannot deal with exposure at all. That's why, even on a local level, there are rules how you're supposed to talk, how long you're supposed to talk, what you're supposed to say, when you're not supposed to say. Fallen mankind looks for a script to follow. They don't want scripture to instruct them, they want a script to follow. Why? Because if everyone follows a script, everyone can get along with the cycle. And because everyone is deprived financially, nobody can revolt, everyone is ease. That's how society operates. Society needs impoverishment in order to function. Society cannot function if its members are abundant financially. It cannot. So society needs to keep people impoverished ready to work. Worldlings only get the easy crave by having everyone impoverished just like them. Worldlings are invested in the misfortune. I told you so. They are. That's why anytime you break through in life, whether it's financially or you break through by overcoming psychological issues, do not expect people to be happy for you. Think about Christ himself. Christ, born out of Mary, and of course, nobody back then believed the virgin birth thing because it's impossible for a woman to become pregnant without the seed of a man. So I can understand why they believed the miraculous birth of Christ back then. So they thought, man, Mary was sleeping around when she was engaged with Joseph. So when Jesus was born, everyone thought, oh man, we don't know who the father of the child is. So Christ was already had a stigma on him as the son of a woman that was whoring around. Which was a bad thing. Joseph and Mary had other children of their own. Joseph died prematurely, and Christ, as the older half brother, had to also help his younger siblings. Christ moved away from Nazareth, which was a ghetto back then, and he moved to Capernaum, where he worked, ran his own place, and at age 30, he started his own ministry with the money he saved, and he started an economic movement. Christ was not rich like a millionaire, like some mega preachers claimed he was, but Christ had his own economic movement that was successful. When Christ went back to Nazareth, he went back, when you look in the New Testament, I believe he went back twice. I could be mistaken about that, but according to what I went through the New Testament, he went back twice to Nazareth. When he went to Nazareth, people already heard rumors about him. There was news about him, about this teacher from Nazareth called Yeshua or Yahushua, who had this economic movements. When Christ came back, and they realized, whoa, how come this son of Mary, who know who his father is, how come this carpenter has his own economic movement? All his siblings here are married with their families over here, and he's there leading an economic movement with so many people joining him. The thing is, people looked down on Jesus for being this grown man without a wife and without a family. They thought he was either a loser or he was into the Greek lifestyle, if you understand what I mean. This is what they were thinking about him. But the thing is, when Christ came back, still unmarried, without any kids also, but he had an economic movement, and there were families following him, it went against their worldview. Nobody in Nazareth actually had that prospect of themselves that they would become a leader or whatever. They just got along with daily life, complaining about the Roman government and the corrupt Judean politicians. And now you have Christ causing change for the better. Oh, and look at this. When Christ went to the synagogue, which was the cultural center of the Judeans back then, he rolled out a scroll from the book of Isaiah. He read a portion from the book of Isaiah, and he told them, this scripture is fulfilled right in front of you. So Christ showed right over there that he was the promised Messiah. When he did that, they turned on him. Christ left the synagogue. He healed a few people. One portion in it tells that they tried to push him off a cliff, even though there were no actual cliffs around there. So they were chasing him around. In the other record, Christ just moved out. The thing is, the people were not willing to update their view of Jesus. In their mind, Jesus was a loser in his early 30s, without wife and children, who was homeless, going around begging for money. The truth was, he was a man with an economic movement that was strong enough to challenge Roman rule and Judea even. And I thought, how come this guy became like this? And now you're telling me he's the promised Messiah that will restore both Israel and save mankind? Instead of them being inspired, saying, wow, the Savior grew up amongst us. Who, instead of being happy and rejoicing, they took offense. They didn't want to hear about it. They became upset. They exploded on Jesus. Now let me tell you, you are not the heavenly Father in human form. You're not. Okay, you are a creature. Okay, you're not God. But let me tell you, as a born again human being, you are part of the economic movement of Christ called the kingdom of God. And just like they went against the king himself, they will go against you too. Maybe you were socially anxious while growing up because of neglect by your parents, and you weren't handy in social interaction. You barely had friends in high school, whatever. There's still people reminding you like that. And let's say they see you today, being a pastor, or maybe as a woman, you are a role model for a lot of young women. They're going to think, hold on, is this not the same Tammy that used to be socially awkward, that barely had friends. It's not the same Tammy that couldn't even deal with attention from boys. How come she's happily married now and being a role model for a lot of young women? They're going to lose their mind because they based their self-worth on you being worse off than them. Nobody in the right mind should do this, but that's what they've done. So now that you are doing better in life, they don't want to have an updated view of you. But because the updated view of you crashed down their self-worth, they blame you for it. That's how they are in the world. When you look at most of those missing persons cases out there, most of the people that went missing and were later found dead, they had some type of breakthrough in their life. They had some type of update for the better that people around didn't want to have. And as an inside job, they disappeared. And often the police knows very well what happened, but they know if we bring this out, society will be exposed and we're going to have more escalations and more people losing their mind over here. So they keep it hidden till a few decades later, the cold case so-called solved. And here's the thing, Chris, the criminal justice system should even exist because it's based on Greek idolatry. The thing is, when a crime is committed, means that the community failed somewhere. Even if someone is a reprobate will only be motivated to act out if there is some neglect on part of the community. To put all the folks that put someone in prison is useless. You need to deal with what went wrong in the community. The United States used to be so obsessed with building prisons and putting people in prison instead of dealing with the root issues in the community. And now we see the result. That's why you have so many deals being made. Because they don't because they can't just keep building prisons and over again, keep putting people in it. That's also going to expose how unstable United States is. That's why they make so many deals. Prison does not solve anything in the community. It doesn't. Prison only contains some of the dangerous people. That's it. Some. Not all the people in prison are dangerous. Some just have made a mistake or they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. And there are also a lot of convicts who are wrongly convicted. So not everyone in prison are bad people. But you do have a lot of reprobate dangerous people in prison. That's true. Prison only contains some reprobates for a little while. But it doesn't solve the neglect in the community. To put your trust in a criminal justice system itself is idolatry, and that itself is part of the problem. Because the criminal justice system shouldn't even exist. The thing is, if the community was not neglectful at all, crime wouldn't even exist in a community. There are some communities on the earth. You can leave your house without locking the door and your stuff are safe. Or you can lose your wallet and they bring a wallet with all the money in it to you. Just like that. Because of the attitude of the public. Now, there's still neglect going on because it's a world. But in general, people consider their community. But then you have communities where nobody really cares for one another, and people think, hey, if nobody cares about me, then I need to look after myself. And in such a context, you have more crime and more violence. So, Chris, based on your comment, it appears as if you used to believe in the criminal justice system and used to praise how it used to be. Don't. The criminal justice system is an embarrassment in itself that it even exists. And there's the thing, if the community had accountability, you wouldn't even have a criminal justice system. Because 99% of all crime would have been prevented by people just looking after one another. But because this is what the Bible says. The Bible even says in the Old Testament, the more rebellious a people is, the more princes they have ruling over them. So the more unstable a public is, the more government structure you have just to keep them in check. The fact you have so many jurisdictions above us at the moment shows you how unstable mankind is. The more stable population is, the less government structure you need. As simple as that. Orphanages shouldn't even exist. There are many couples out there who are willing to adopt many children. So why do orphanages even exist? Orphanages contain neglected children, and those neglected children, some that become monsters later on haunt the community, others become criminals, and others become homeless folks. They are exploited. Why was there no intervention when the children were abandoned, put them into better families? Why don't that happen? So the public neglects itself, and later they complain when the monsters they've produced are haunting them. And now they want police in the street to put them in prison to catch the bad guys. But those bad guys wouldn't even exist if you would have been honorable towards your own population with one another. Mankind without Christ is neglectful. That's why you have all those regulations to hide the neglect. That's what politics is all about. Politics is all about hiding the neglect of the public. Simple as that. The United States did not succeed in hiding its neglect. That's why it's falling apart now. In Latin America, in many countries, they can't hide the neglect either. That's why a lot of countries don't function properly. Countries that are able to hide the neglect or excuse the neglect successfully, they tend to be more, the public tends to be more stable and more in harmony. What we do as believers is we shut down the reprobates on a spiritual level, and we use our economic power to offer better alternatives to the public. That's what we do as believers. If believers operate in the resurrection power of Christ all the time, we will be the one running the nations. It should be believers running the nations, all the affairs of the nations, whether it's health, whether it's finance, whether it's dealing with childcare. All the affairs of all the nations on the earth should be run by believers. You shouldn't have those devil worshippers faking to be believers running things. Absolutely not. At this moment, believers are not running things everywhere because too many believers are stuck in those pagan churches. But I can see in the decades to come that believers will be forced to run affairs locally and later also in their region because those satanic governments they don't know anymore what to do. They've run out of options. So now you know this about society. Now that's why we have to be aware what if you're exposing something. Now we are told in the New Testament we need to expose unfruitful works of darkness. It does not say we have to expose all the evil. Okay, because the public is suppressing the knowledge of the evil around them. We need to expose the unfruitful works of darkness. What is unfruitful work? It's something that doesn't benefit. So trusting the criminal justice system is an unfruitful work of darkness because it doesn't solve anything. So then we expose and realize, okay, we need some better alternative. You get me? So be wise as a serpent, beware what you expose, and contribute for the better. That's what we need to do as believers. So, do you have any questions about this topic? Let me know. True, Chris. Decreeing and declaring is something believers is something that um, the African diaspora in the Caribbean, as well as believers from Africa, tend to do on a regular basis. We know we need to do that. The brother in Kansas, he's doing better now. There's a whole team of believers from the United States also intervening for him. Now it's people from Missouri uh, that are being upset with him. But anyway, the brother's doing well, and maybe soon he'll even leave the United States. But that's something that the Father will decide. What I was saying is decreeing and declaring something all believers should be doing. Decreeing and declaring is about enforcing life in abundance. Believers in Africa, as well as believers from African diaspora in the Caribbean, they know about this because we have Ogun creeps, Ogun worshippers on our behind. And I can tell you, man, Those Ogun worshippers in the Caribbean and in the continent of Africa, they're in your face. You have those Ogun witches coming to your house and telling you, I'm going to kill you and your children. Or you have those warlocks openly going around looking angry at you, trying to uh, intimidate you and all of that. So we face the attacks on full. And that's why we have to be firm in the faith. The thing is, believers in the United States, as well as the rest of the Western world and Asia, they kind of sugarcoat the reality of the instability of mankind without Christ. And because of that, a lot of believers are pampered with a sugar-coated version of the gospel that leaves out walking in power. Yes, most churches prevent believers from running the nations. I'm glad you learned about it, Chris. It's quite important. They're devil worshippers decreeing negativity, and negativity works. Don't you know? Don't you know that there are witches out there going around in the streets in a negative mood, spreading negativity and decreeing harm on the community just to make sure there's a balance, so that there's not enough negativity for Satan out there? There are witches doing that. You some of those women, you see them walking outside, they look sad, and you think, oh, she looks sad, maybe she needs help. No, she's a witch that spreads around a bad mood just to make sure demons have enough access to operate. You have warlocks faking to be homeless people, decreeing curses on those who walk around. If you give them money, they take the money you give them as a donation to help them, and they curse the money and curse your finances. That happens. That happens too. So those at the dark side, they're decreeing and declaring like crazy. They're dedicated. Now you have believers thinking we shouldn't decree and declare because we need to validate the quote unquote free will of other people. You have to allow people to choose the negative and just allow it to play out and hope for better in heaven. Man, it's time that believers wake up from this dark bullshit, man. Really. Alpha from Studio asks, what do you think about Florida and Texas and Arizona? It doesn't matter what I think about them. The truth is, the United States is unstable. And Florida, Texas, and Arizona, um, apart from Arizona, Texas, and Florida, they have some generational curses relating to the transatlantic slave trade that they still need to process. So that's also something that needs to play out. Arizona, I don't have a good feeling about that state relating to trafficking. So just beware of that. Florida, there are some drug cartels that are moving in Florida because in Texas you have the border police on their behind, so they go through Florida then. But anyway, drug cartels are nothing but satanic cults that are using blood sacrifice to be tough. Man, those cartel members aren't even masculine men; they're effeminate, grown boys that hate females. That's all they are. Nobody can speak to the dead. Human beings that pass away are in Sheol, God's archive in the earth, till the day Jesus comes back and resurrects them in immortal bodies. Those dead that so-called witches are speaking to are fallen angels or Nephilim spirits pretending to be those dead relatives. Simple as that. If you're in California as a believer, please be firm in the Christian declarations because you have a lot of satanic filth on the loose over there in the state of California, especially in the area of Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just beware. So let's see if I missed any questions. Hold on. All right. That's enough for now. It's almost an hour. Thank you all for being here. Keep on growing in Christ. Keep your eyes open And please, I want to see you running the affairs locally very soon. I want to see us believers running the nations very speedily. In Christ Jesus' mighty name. See you next time.